Okay, so today we've got this interview with cringe lord Elon Musk, and some of this is pretty cringe, but also very entertaining. The interviewer was really good, actually. She did not let him off the hook, and he was belligerent, he was grumpy at times, he was defensive about what's been going on. So, yes, it wasn't like a Fox News interview, which is pretty much what all he's been giving lately, with softball questions and just agreeing with him, worshipping him. So it's interesting from that point of view. Let's get straight into it, and I'm going to react to it as we go along. Let's go.
If we start with Tesla, the company has suffered in recent months what you've called blowback. So what is your plan for turning that around, the declining sales picture, and by what stage do you think you're going to be able to turn it around?
Oh, it's already turned around.
Yeah, right.
Give me some evidence for that. I've just been looking at the sales figures for Europe in April, which show very significant declines in the big markets.
Yeah, we've shown figures of this. I've done videos on this. Sales are way down in Europe, and it's not just the Model Y refresh not coming out yet. It's starting to be looking really bad. So he's basically BSing here.
Europe is our weakest market. We're strong everywhere else.
Again, not true. It's not true. China's down, and other parts aren't looking too good either.
No, our sales are doing well at this point. We don't anticipate any meaningful sales shortfall, and
We'll see if that's true when figures come out.
obviously the stock market recognizes that, since we're now back over $1 trillion in market cap. So.
Saying the stock price rather than the sales, concentrating on that stock, which is not what CEOs usually do. The stock is up, so we must be doing well rather than actual sales.
Clearly, the market is aware of the situation, so it's already turned around.
But sales still down compared to this time last year.
So she's not letting him off the hook.
In Europe.
In Europe, okay. And
yes, but that's true of all manufacturers. There's no exceptions.
No, that's not true either. Electric did a post just today about how what he's saying here in this interview just was not true. It's not true in Europe that they're all down across the board. Everyone, not true at all.
Does that mean that you're not going to be able? Does that mean
European market is quite weak?
Okay, but you would acknowledge, wouldn't you, that what you are facing, okay, let's just take it as Europe, what you are facing is a significant problem. This Tesla was an incredibly aspirational brand. People identified with it. They saw it as being at the forefront of the climate crisis, and now people are driving around with stickers in their cars saying, I bought this before we knew Elon was crazy.
Good that she pointed that out. As Fox News would not have pointed that out.
And there are also people who are buying it because Elon's crazy, or however they may view it. So yes, we've lost some sales perhaps on the left, but we've gained them on the right.
Well, we'll see if that's true too. If the right is keen to buy EVs, electric cars, surveys on that haven't really been true. Maybe in the US, where he's managed to convince mega people to buy EVs, but it remains to be seen. And what he's saying here about sales in Europe just is not the case.
The sales numbers at this point are strong, and we see no problem with demand.
Well, I think this problem with demand of the Cybertruck, that seems pretty obvious at this point, as we saw with the figures just in the last quarter. The Ford F-150 Lightning EV truck is now ahead of the Cybertruck. It's not looking good for that. He doesn't mention this in this interview, I noticed.
And I mean, you can just look at the stock price. If you want the best inside information, the stock market analysts have that, and our stock wouldn't be trading near all-time highs if it was not, if things weren't in good shape. They're fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I was citing sales figures rather than share price.
Zing! That's a good comeback. I was citing sales rather than stock price, which is what any CEO would do, actually, to cite the actual sales and how the company's doing. Focus on that rather than the stock price. Elon's wealth comes from the stock price and the value of SpaceX as well.
But I wonder if some of what has happened to Tesla in the last few months, did you take it personally?
Yes.
And did it make you regret or think twice about your political endeavors?
Long pause.
Because it is.
I did what needed to be done. The violent antibody reaction, and I'm not someone who's ever committed violence, and yet massive violence was committed against my companies.
Okay, so he's focusing on the vandalism and so forth on the cars rather than on the Tesla boycott on buying the cars, which is the vast majority of people. Yes, a few people, were committing vandalism and things that should not have happened with dealerships, but the vast majority of people just boycotted Tesla, the brand, and peacefully protested outside showrooms.
Violence was threatened against me. Who are these people? Why would they do that? How wrong can they be? They're on the wrong side of history, and that's an evil thing to do. To go and damage some poor innocent person's car, to threaten to kill me. What's wrong with these people? I've not harmed anyone. So something needs to be done about them, and a number of them are going to prison, and they deserve it. And more will.
You're referring to the attacks on Tesla showrooms, but I think
Firing bullets into showrooms and burning down cars is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Those people will go to prison, and the people that funded them and organized them will also go to prison. Don't worry.
But wouldn't you?
We're coming for you.
Oh, look, he did that gesture again. That's what he did on Fox News. He obviously saw that and thought that was a good thing to do again. Coming after you. And Pam Bondi says domestic terrorism. Again, the interviewer does not let him off the hook on this, talking about actual sales and people boycotting peacefully.
Wouldn't you? But wouldn't you acknowledge that some of the people who turned against Tesla in Europe were upset at your politics?
Yes. So those politics being supporting the AFD party, even his own AI Grok says that they're not a centrist party, as he says, definitely far right and some elements in that neo-fascist. Elon, is a neo-fascist, I think, after, studying him, researching him daily for ages. The things that he says on X definitely are that.
Few of them would have been violent in any way. They just objected to what they saw you say or do politically.
Well, it's certainly fine to object to political things, but it's not fine to resort to violence and hanging someone in effigy and death threats. That's obviously not okay. That's absurd. That is in no way justifiable at all, in any way, shape, or form. And some of the legacy media nonetheless have sought to justify it, which is unconscionable. Shame on them.
You are in this unique and unprecedented position of having billions of dollars worth of contracts with the federal government yourself, mostly through SpaceX, and also now an insider's knowledge of it because of Doge. Can you see that there is a conflict of interest or a potential conflict of interest in broad terms just through that very fact?
Here we go, the conflict of interest. So this is only part of the interview, by the way. It's 40 minutes long. I'm going to put a link to the whole video here. So I've just picked out specific portions here of difficult questions for Elon to answer. The conflict of interest, which seems so obvious to so many people going in with Doge, overseeing departments or going into departments, seeing data, using data, and being so close to the president Trump doing what amounted to an infomercial on the driveway of the White House. How's that not a conflict of interest for his biggest donor? That's what that was. A company head who was his biggest donor doing an infomercial.
I don't think so, actually. There have been many advisors throughout history and in the U.S. government and others who have had economic interests. And I am simply an advisor. I don't have formal power, and that's it.
Formal power, got a lot of informal power for sure. Casual power.
The president can choose to accept my advice or not, and that's how it goes. If there's a single contract that any of my companies have received that people think is somehow not was awarded improperly, it would immediately be front page news. To say the least.
Okay, so there've been many articles about this. New York Times has written about the conflicts of interest and going in there to try and decrease regulation for his own companies, the departments that are in charge of his company's regulation. So this is just not true. They were definitely popular top stories when they came out. So I don't know who he's trying to kid here.
And if I didn't mention it, certainly my competitors would. So if you're not seeing that, then clearly there's not a conflict of interest.
There's another way, though, to look at it, that, for example,
Good how she's not letting him off the hook again with this.
you have many competitors, whether it's companies like Boeing or companies who would like to do more of the kind of work you do for NASA, Blue Origin, Rocket Lab. And because Doge is in every federal government department, you or people who work for Doge, and you are the driving force behind it, have an insight into those companies' affairs and those companies' relationships with the federal government.
Exactly.
No, all we do is we review the organization to see if the organization has departments that are no longer relevant, and then are the contracts that are being awarded good value for money. In fact, frankly, the bar is not particularly high. Is there any value for money in a contract? And if there isn't, then we make recommendations to the secretary. The secretary can then choose to take those actions or not take those actions, and that's it. And then any action that is as a function of Doge is posted to the Doge website and to the Doge.gov or at Doge handle on the X platform. So it's complete transparency.
Oh, this has been debunked too. What they posted onto the website, a lot of that has been just basic accounting. I was going to say forensic accounting, but there's been so many things that have just said that is BS. The actual savings they've got. There's a whole bit of this interview that's about Doge where she does question him about how many savings they've got and the transparency, but the transparency is rubbish. They're meant to get to $1 trillion, which they do talk about in another part of the interview, but they've got nowhere near that. And the savings that they say they've got, a lot of them have just been debunked. It's actually, costing money rather than saving money.
And I've not seen any case where, to the best of my knowledge, there's even been an accusation of conflict.
That's just rubbish.
Because it's completely and utterly transparent.
This is so cringe that he's saying all this. It's hard to believe anything he says these days.
Now, let's think about Starlink. Starlink is obviously a very, very good internet service. It's sought after all over the world. It's critical to the front line in Ukraine. It has also had more contracts coming its way, and there is some evidence that companies are allowing access to it because they want to be close to the Trump administration and send the right signal. So,
bingo, Starlink, he's trying to push contracts on different countries in the position. Exactly what she said here. And he's squirming and panicking here. You can see his brain ticking over. Panic.
Bloomberg broke news today that the South African government is working around the rules on black ownership in order to allow Starlink in, and that is being done on the eve of the visit that President Ramaphosa is going to make to the White House. Do you recognize that as a conflict of interest?
No, of course not. First of all, you should be questioning why are there racist laws in South Africa? That's the first problem. That's what you should be attacking. It's improper for there to be racist laws in South Africa. The whole idea with what Nelson Mandela, who was a great man, proposed was that all races should be on an equal footing in South Africa. That's the right thing to do, not to replace one set of racist laws with another set of racist laws, which is utterly wrong and improper. Now I'm in this absurd situation where I was born in South Africa but cannot get a license to operate in Starlink because I'm not black.
See how one of his most passionate things that he talks about is racism against white people in South Africa in particular, and it's to do with his businesses as well. When we talk about him being neo-fascist, is exactly the kind of thing that really backs up when he did those salutes. He comes out on X all the time with these kinds of arguments, but she doesn't let him off the hook on this one either.
It looks like that. Right to you? Looks like that's about to change.
I just asked you a question. Please answer. Does that seem right to you?
Well, those rules were designed to bring those rules were designed to bring about an era of more economic equality in South Africa, and it looks like the government has found a way around those rules for you.
I asked you a question.
This is
Cringe.
your interview. Everyone wants to hear from you.
Ask you a question. Yes or no?
Not for
Racist
me.
laws, yes or no?
Not for me to answer.
Why do you like racist laws?
This is not for me to answer. Come on.
So this is the kind of thing that he digs in on, is racism against white people and population. When he says population's in decline, when he puts up graphs and everything, it's countries with significant white populations. It's not the countries which are actually growing in population, sub-Saharan African countries and other countries where brown and black people are. He just thinks that that's a problem, that these countries are gaining in population and places like Europe are declining. That's a massive problem for him.
Yes, it is.
Now, you wouldn't be trying to dodge a question. I'm sure you can have that conversation directly with the South African government if you want to. Your political influence. I wondered whether you have decided yet how much you're going to spend on the upcoming midterms. Is it you spent a lot more money on the last US election than you envisaged when you were speaking here 3 years ago? Are you going to continue to spend at that kind of level on future elections?
I think in terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future.
And why is that?
I think I've done enough.
There's a laugh there from the
Is
audience.
it because of blowback?
Yes.
Well, if I see a reason to do political spending in the future, I will do it. I do not currently see a reason.
He's broken. I think the people broke him, and Trump saw it too. He gave huge amounts of money to Trump for the election. That did seem to work. It's arguable whether it actually did do that much, but he was kind of in favor then publicly. But then the Wisconsin judicial election, if you were following that, he put a lot of money, millions and millions, and he tried to buy votes there. And it didn't work. So I think Trump looked at that and said, well, Elon is of no use anymore. And suddenly Elon pulls back. He says he's not doing Doge anymore. He became incredibly unpopular. And so that's where we're at. And suddenly he decides he's not interested in politics anymore or funding politics. Or maybe Trump doesn't want his influence because he can see that he's toxic as far as the public goes. So to see the panic in his eyes here about this, it's very interesting. And speaking of politics, if you're not following the politics channel yet, do that. I'm going to put a link to that, especially this video. This is the last video where it's about we need to talk about American fascism. That's right, neo-fascism, not like the fascism of the 20th century. It's different. If you think that, if you go over there, there are some experts. I've taken snippets of some interviews with real experts on authoritarianism and fascism who are talking about that. If you haven't seen that video yet, I do encourage you to go and see that. I'll put that in the pinned comment and in the description as well, so do go and see that. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to put another related video right there. Do go and see that now if you want to. And also do subscribe here if you're not yet already and you've been a regular here. And thanks to everybody for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.